when Payne's true love passed away, he completely fell apart. His older brother practically manufactured me to be her perfect carbon copy. He dropped me right into Payne's life with one simple directive. Keep him happy, and I'll wire you $10 million a month. No matter how many times Payne screamed at me to get the hell out of his sight, I just sat there, watching him with quiet, unwavering devotion. Eventually his walls crumbled, and he finally pulled me into his arms. From that moment on, he treated me like absolute royalty. He spoiled me rotten, holding me like I was the most precious thing in his world. But then came the ultimate plot twist. His unforgettable true love, the girl, who was supposed to be 6 feet under, suddenly posted a live location tag from a beach in Hawaii. That night, Payne completely lost his mind. He was so intensely aggressive with me it felt like he was going to tear my bones apart. Every single wealthy elite in the city grabbed their popcorn, waiting to see how the pathetic little stand-in would have a massive, humiliating mental breakdown. Instead, the very next morning, I walked straight into his brother's office, my face flushed, and asked, "Boss, does this count as a workplace injury? Do I get workers' comp? Workers' compensation?" Timmy's voice was frigid. I scratched my cheek, keeping my voice small. "Matthew was so aggressive last night. I don't have a single patch of good skin left, and it hurts to walk." "Mr. Hayes, I can show you if you don't believe me." Timmy cut me off, his tone completely flat. "The money will be transferred to your account shortly." My eyes immediately lit up. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes." I paused for a second before adding, "And about the severance package?" "Severance package?" Timmy frowned, a flicker of confusion crossing his face, right before his phone started ringing. He answered it. After a long, heavy silence, his eyes narrowed sharply. "She's still alive?" He hung up the phone. Timmy tapped his long fingers against the mahogany desk. He finally understood what I was asking for. He looked at me and said, "Stay by his side for now. If it turns out he truly doesn't need you anymore, I will ensure you receive a very generous severance." I secretly rolled my eyes. Of course he wasn't going to need me anymore. His one true love wasn't actually dead. Why on earth would he need a cheap knockoff? But I kept my expression docile, nodded sweetly, and said, "Understood." I turned to leave. Timmy's flat voice echoed behind me. "Do not get attached to things that don't belong to you." My footsteps faltered. He was warning me. Just like everyone else in the city, he assumed I was going to have a massive mental breakdown. He probably thought I would go insane, maybe even try to hurt someone, fully embracing the role of the toxic, gold-digging substitute. I let out a soft sigh. I really couldn't blame him for thinking that. For the past 3 years, Matthew had been absolutely obsessed with me. Recently, he had even started contacting wedding planners. If everything went according to plan, we would be signing the marriage papers very soon. Unfortunately for me, the plan just crashed and burned. Matthew's unforgettable, irreplaceable true love was alive. My guaranteed spot as the wife of the second Hayes heir had just evaporated. Logically speaking, I should be absolutely losing my mind right now. But over the last few years, I never once forgot my place. The condescending affection I earned by mimicking another woman was never going to last. The only thing that was real, the only thing that actually belonged to me, was the paycheck Timmy deposited into my bank account. I turned back and gave Timmy a bright smile. "Don't worry, Mr. Hayes. For the salary you're paying me, I promise I won't disappoint you." I pushed open the office doors and stepped out, only to run into someone I completely did not expect to see in the hallway. Locking eyes with him, I froze entirely. Matthew. The breathtakingly handsome man stopped in his tracks. His dark eyes locked onto me like radar. "What are you doing here?" I violently suppressed my panic, my brain working in absolute overdrive. Matthew had absolutely no idea that I knew his brother. He also had no idea that my entire relationship with him was a meticulously calculated setup orchestrated by Timmy himself. Years ago, when Matthew's true love died, he completely lost his mind. He spent his days drinking himself into oblivion and street racing, causing a string of massive scandals. He was constantly on the front page of the tabloids, tanking the Hayes Corporation's stock prices. As the CEO and head of the family, Timmy was irritated and running out of patience. That was until someone mentioned to him that there was a girl working at a high-end club who looked slightly like the dead girl. That girl was me. Stacks of files and photos were dropped in front of me, and I learned quickly. Since I was docile and incredibly easy to control, I was swiftly delivered to Matthew to act as an emotional pacifier. Matthew honestly believed I was just a girl who coincidentally looked like his ex and happened to be desperately, hopelessly in love with him. Thanks to my relentless devotion, he eventually started to care about me. If this secret got out, forget the workers' comp and the severance package. I wouldn't even get my salary for this month. I immediately clung to Matthew's arm, my voice soft and whiny. When I woke up, you were already gone, and your phone went straight to voicemail. I was so worried, so I came to ask your brother if he knew where you went. You aren't mad at me, are you, Matthew? Matthew paused, his tone indifferent. He's busy running the corporation. Don't bother him with trivial things. Seeing that he bought the lie, I discreetly let out a breath of relief and nodded obediently. Oh, I won't do it again. He gave a careless nod and pulled his arm out of my grip. Go home. What about tonight? You promised we'd have a candlelight dinner. I pressed on. I actually managed to get a reservation at that incredibly exclusive restaurant. Matthew stopped. His long, elegant fingers reached out to stroke my cheek, exactly the way someone would pet a dog. Next time, he said. Unsurprisingly, there probably wasn't going to be a next time, but I still nodded like a perfect, obedient doll. Okay. If Matthew wasn't going, I was going by myself. I had been dying to eat at this restaurant for ages, but getting a table was notoriously impossible. Just last week, while I was giving Timmy his weekly report on Matthew's mental state, I casually mentioned Mr. Hayes. Getting a table at the restaurant on the top floor of the Apex Tower is literally impossible. Do you happen to have any connections? Timmy put down his pen, looked up at me, and asked abruptly, have you mentioned this to Matthew? I nodded. He said if it's too much trouble to book, we should just drop it. He said all fine dining tastes the same anyway, but the interior design there is gorgeous, and I really wanted to see it. Timmy took a slow sip of his black coffee, his face completely expressionless. Then he made a single phone call. A second later, a reservation confirmation popped up on my phone. Miss Winters? A male voice broke through my thoughts, snapping me back to reality. I lowered my wine glass and looked up. It was the manager from the wedding planning agency I had been in contact with. I offered a polite smile. You're dining here tonight as well? He looked at me for a few seconds, cleared his throat awkwardly, and lowered his voice to probe. Are things all right between you and Mr. Hayes? Excuse me? I feigned perfect confusion. Mr. Hayes's assistant contacted me. All wedding preparations and venue designs are being put on hold indefinitely. The man hesitated. Specifically, everything regarding the bride. I fully understood why he was panicking. I gave him a comforting smile. Don't worry. The wedding isn't being canceled. It was a multi-million-dollar contract. Nobody wanted to lose that commission. The manager blinked, swallowing the reassurance, and instantly broke into a massive grin. Well then, congratulations in advance to you and Mr. Hayes. The wedding wasn't going to be canceled. The bride was just being swapped out. I didn't bother explaining the details. After the manager walked away, I started playing with my silverware out of pure boredom. Suddenly, I caught sight of two figures sitting by the floor-to-ceiling windows. I looked over, and my entire body froze in the chair. It was Matthew. He was sitting facing me, but his eyes were completely glued to the woman sitting across from him. Her delicate, slender back. It only took one glance for me to know exactly who she was. After all, I had spent countless hours staring at photos of her, perfectly mimicking her every posture and expression. A waiter arrived to drop off an appetizer. I pointed discreetly across the room. I tried booking that specific table for months and couldn't get it. Did they just pay a massive premium? I only complained casually, not actually expecting an answer. High-end staff were trained to guard their clients' privacy with their lives. To my surprise, the waiter chuckled softly. Well, this restaurant operates under the Hayes Corporation. That gentleman over there is the young master of the family. He sits wherever he pleases with a single word. I sat there, completely stunned. No wonder. When I told Timmy about this place, he gave me this incredibly unreadable look. Then with one phone call, the table was mine. And Matthew? He couldn't even be bothered to make that one single phone call for me. I had complained to him so many times about failing to get a reservation here. He would just pull me into his lap, casually playing with my earring, lazily admiring the disappointment on my face. Oh, you poor thing. Can't even get the dinner you want. But then again, that was exactly how he always treated me. No respect, no equality. I was just a pet he could mold and tease whenever he felt like it. For example, I sat quietly, watching the two of them across the room. Matthew would never sit across the table from me. He always demanded I sit right next to him, just so he could easily pull me into his arms and mess with me. He would never politely pour me a glass of wine and engage in a serious, mature conversation. He would just press his own wine glass against my lips and lazily threaten, "Not going to drink it? Do you want me to feed it to you from my mouth?" Honestly, I never really wanted his respect anyway. I always knew exactly where I stood. But seeing him act like a perfect gentleman with her right in front of my eyes still left a slightly bitter taste in my mouth. Well, if it isn't Miss Winters. A man aggressively dropped into the empty chair across from me, forcing me to rip my eyes away from Matthew's table. It was one of Matthew's obnoxious rich friends. We were literally taking bets yesterday on how fast Matthew was going to dump you. And look at you, already eating all by yourself. He smiled with pure malice, his eyes raking over me like I was an object on display. Then he pulled out his phone, blatantly snapped a picture of me, and sent it to a group chat. He held down the voice memo button. Guess who I just ran into, boys? Matthew really tossed her to the curb. Sitting there, an absolutely insane thought crossed my mind. If Matthew's garbage friends were harassing me, could I invoice Timmy for emotional damage? Without him paying the bills, how are you going to keep up this luxury lifestyle? He sneered, leaning closer with a sleazy look. Why don't you spend a few nights with me? 20 grand a night. Sound good? As much as I genuinely wanted to throw my wine directly into his face and tell him my actual boss paid me 10 times that, I couldn't. I still had a deeply devoted, heartbroken persona to maintain. I kept my voice soft and gentle. That's not true. Matthew just said he had something important to handle tonight. We're coming here together next time. The man actually laughed out loud. He jerked his chin toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. Do you see who is sitting over there? I only glanced over for a second before saying firmly, that's just his friend. I would never interfere with his social life. The man stood up and started walking straight toward their table. He was determined to rip away my last shred of dignity and force me to see exactly how ruthless Matthew really was. Are you kidding me? I violently suppressed the thrill rising in my chest and quickly hurried after him. The closer we got to Matthew's table, the harder it became to suppress the ridiculous excitement bubbling inside me. This was it. This was the scene. The dramatic confrontation. The public humiliation. The emotional breakdown everyone in the city had been waiting 3 years to witness. And if I played my cards right, my severance package might double. The rich idiot marched ahead of me like he was leading an execution. Matthew noticed him first. His expression immediately darkened. What do you want? The man grinned. Nothing. Just thought you should know your little girlfriend is sitting over there all alone looking pretty miserable. For the first time all night, Matthew's eyes shifted. Straight toward me. Our gazes met. I immediately widened my eyes. Then I forced out my best wounded puppy expression. Years of professional experience kicked in automatically. The rich friend practically vibrated with excitement. Matthew, aren't you going to introduce us? The woman beside him finally looked over. And wow, photos truly did not do her justice. She was beautiful. Not in a flashy way. Not in the kind of way that made people stare. She was the sort of beautiful that made people feel comfortable. Warm. Gentle. The kind of person who probably returned shopping carts without being asked. No wonder Matthew had lost his mind over her. The woman looked between me and Matthew. Then she smiled. Hello. I smiled back. Hello. The rich friend blinked. Clearly that wasn't the reaction he wanted. He immediately pointed at her. You know who this is, right? I nodded. Of course. His grin widened. And she's very pretty. The smile froze on his face. The woman actually laughed. A soft, surprised laugh. Matthew's gaze narrowed slightly. The friend tried again. You don't have anything else to say? I thought about it. Then answered honestly. Your table has a much better view than mine. The woman laughed harder. Even Matthew's lips twitched. The friend looked personally betrayed. What is wrong with you people? He had clearly expected screaming. Maybe crying. Possibly a dramatic collapse onto the restaurant floor. Instead he got a conversation about furniture placement. The woman wiped the corner of her eye. You're funny. Oh. I looked genuinely confused. I wasn't making a joke. That somehow made her laugh even harder. The rich friend finally gave up. He stormed away muttering curses under his breath. I turned to leave too. Mission accomplished. But Matthew's voice stopped me. Stay. I froze. The woman looked at the empty chair beside their table. Then at me. Have dinner with us. Absolutely not. Every survival instinct in my body started screaming. This was a disaster. A catastrophe. A nightmare. I was supposed to be quietly fading out of the picture. Not becoming part of whatever this was. I don't want to intrude. You aren't. The woman smiled warmly. Please. Matthew remained silent. Which was apparently agreement. I briefly considered faking food poisoning. Then remembered this restaurant's prices. I sat down. The next hour was one of the strangest experiences of my life. Because the woman wasn't mean. At all. She wasn't arrogant. Or possessive. Or secretly plotting against me. She was just nice. Inconveniently nice. Her name was Lily. And after 20 minutes I was beginning to understand why Matthew had never forgotten her. The woman was basically human sunshine. Even I liked her. This was becoming a serious problem. At one point Lily excused herself to take a phone call. The moment she disappeared, silence settled over the table. Matthew stared into his wine glass. I stared into my water. Neither of us spoke. Finally he asked quietly, You knew. I nearly choked. What? You knew she was alive. I relaxed. Oh, not the secret. Good. No. He looked at me. I shrugged. I found out yesterday. His fingers tightened around the stem of his glass. Why didn't you say anything? I looked genuinely puzzled. Why would I? Matthew went silent. The answer seemed obvious to me. Why would I tell him? His long-lost love had returned. That was his business. Not mine. After several moments, he asked another question. Were you upset? Now that one was harder. I considered it honestly. Then answered. A little. Something flickered in his eyes. A little? I nodded. The wedding planner already ordered samples. Matthew stared. The cake tasting was next month. His expression became increasingly strange. The pastries looked really good. For several seconds he simply looked at me. Then suddenly laughed. Actually laughed. A genuine laugh. I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard one. You were upset about the cake? Of course. I sounded offended. Do you know how hard it is to get a free luxury wedding cake tasting? Matthew lowered his head. His shoulders started shaking. I stared. Was he laughing harder? When Lily returned, she found Matthew laughing into one hand while I sat there completely confused. What happened? Matthew looked at me, then at Lily, and said something completely unexpected. I think everyone in this city misunderstood her. My stomach dropped. Danger. Extreme danger. I immediately changed the subject. Miss Lily, how was Hawaii? The smile on her face faded. Instantly. The atmosphere changed. Matthew's laughter disappeared. The two of them exchanged a look. A bad look. A complicated look. My professional instincts started tingling. Something wasn't right. Lily slowly sat down. Then looked directly at me. I wasn't in Hawaii. I blinked. The location tag wasn't posted by me. The smile vanished from my face. Matthew's expression darkened. Very darkened. And suddenly I realized something. something that made every alarm bell in my brain start screaming. The city thought Lily had returned. The tabloids thought Lily had returned. Matthew thought Lily had returned. But apparently, nobody had actually confirmed anything. A terrible feeling settled into my stomach. Lily folded her hands together. I only arrived back in the country this morning. Silence. Matthew slowly looked up. What? Lily's voice was soft. Matthew. For the first time all evening, she looked nervous. There's something I need to explain. And just like that, every instinct I possessed told me that the story everyone thought they knew was about to completely fall apart. The silence at the table didn't break immediately. It stretched. Heavy. Tight. Wrong. Matthew was the first to move. He pushed his chair back so abruptly it scraped across the marble floor. What do you mean you weren't in Hawaii? Lily's hands stayed folded, but her voice wavered. I was in a hospital. That landed harder than anything else tonight. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just watched the pieces start to fall without me touching them. Lily continued, slower now. There was no beach trip. No photos. My phone was stolen 2 months ago. I've been recovering overseas after the accident. Matthew's jaw tightened. That's impossible. It's not. She slid a small folder across the table. Medical reports. Travel records. Identity confirmations. Real ones. Not rumors. Not tabloids. Just facts. The rich, neat illusion that had held the entire city together began to crack right there under the restaurant lights. Matthew stood fully now, staring at the papers like they might change if he looked long enough. You're saying, his voice dropped, you were never gone. Lily's eyes lowered. I never left you on purpose. That was the moment everything shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just final. Matthew's fingers loosened from the edge of the table. His expression didn't collapse, it emptied instead, like something had been pulled straight out of him. Then his eyes moved to me. Slowly. Like he was seeing me without filters for the first time. The version he had built. The version he had used. The version he had held too tightly without ever actually looking at. You, he said. I didn't help him finish it. Because there was nothing left for me to add. The manager from earlier reappeared at the edge of the table, still smiling professionally, completely unaware of the way the entire room had changed. Is everything all right with your reservation? Matthew cut him off without looking away from me. Cancel the wedding. The manager froze. Pardon. Everything, Matthew repeated. All of it. Stop it. No panic. No anger. Just termination. Clean and absolute. The manager hurried away, suddenly remembering he had somewhere else to be. Around us, the restaurant kept moving like nothing had happened. Glasses clinked. Conversations continued. Life refused to pause for our collapse. Lily stood slowly. I didn't come back to take anything from you, she said quietly. Matthew didn't answer her. He was still looking at me. And for the first time, there was no script left for me to follow. No role. No instruction. No paycheck attached to a smile. Just the truth sitting between us, uncomfortably bare. The silence held until I finally pushed my chair back. It didn't scrape. I made sure of that. I picked up my bag, glanced once at the untouched wine, then at Matthew. You don't need me anymore, I said simply. Not a question. Not a plea. Just a fact. He didn't correct me. That told me everything. So I turned and walked out of the restaurant while the city kept pretending nothing had happened behind me. And I just like the city will pretend nothing happened. The moment I stepped out of the restaurant, the air outside felt colder than it should have. Not weather cold. Something else. Like the world had quietly shifted its weight while I wasn't looking. Inside, the glass walls still glowed warm with chandeliers and laughter. Inside, everything still looked expensive and untouched. But I knew what was happening behind that glass. Things don't explode all at once in circles like that. They unravel. Slowly. Quietly. Then all at once. By morning, the first crack showed up in the news. Not gossip this time. Not speculation. Confirmed statements. Legal filings. Emergency board meetings. Hayes Corporation was reviewing internal leadership conduct. which meant Timmy had stopped protecting his brother. That was the real beginning. Matthew didn't show up to the office the next day. Then the next. Phone calls went unanswered. Meetings collapsed into silence. Deals that had been guaranteed for months suddenly disappeared overnight. Investors don't stay loyal when the person they trusted stops being predictable. And Matthew had become unpredictable in the worst possible way. Not unstable, just detached. Lily's return didn't fix anything. It complicated everything. Because she wasn't a miracle. She was a reminder of a story that had been built on absence, assumption, and convenience. And I was the part nobody knew how to classify anymore. Not the girlfriend. Not the fiancé. Not even the mistake. Just a line item that no longer made financial sense. Timmy called me once. No greeting. No softness. Your role has ended. I almost laughed at how clean he made it sound. Do I still get severance? A pause. Then. Yes. Of course I did. Even endings in his world came with paperwork. By the end of the week, my apartment lease had already been upgraded out. A polite corporate relocation. 3 days to vacate. Assistance provided. Translation, erase the trace, keep it moving. On the third day, I stood in the empty living room with a single suitcase. That was all it took to reduce 3 years. One suitcase. The door behind me clicked shut one last time. Downstairs, a black car waited. Not for Matthew. Not for Lily. Not for Timmy. Just for closure. As I got in, the driver didn't ask questions. Neither did I. The city rolled past the window in pieces. Glass, lights, movement. Lives continuing like nothing had snapped in half behind me. And somewhere far behind all of it, something larger than love or obsession or money was still collapsing. Pathetically,